All right. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. This episode is a special show for me because we are featuring Christopher Huie, or Chuie, as he is affectionately known to those of his friends. Chuie is a trailblazing astronaut and aerospace engineer shaping the future of commercial spaceflight. As the senior manager of business insights at Virgin Galactic, Christopher combines technical expertise with strategic leadership to drive data-driven decisions and long-term planning for the company's groundbreaking missions. In 2023, Christopher made history as a mission specialist on Unity 25, Virgin Galactic's pivotal test flight, clearing the path for the world's first commercial space mission. As one of only 19 Black astronauts globally and among the first 650 humans ever in space, his journey is an inspiring testament to resilience and innovation. And besides that, just a great guy. So with that, welcome to the show, Christopher Huie.
Thank you. Great to be here, Drew.
Yeah, man. Hey, I am super pumped to have you on here. So for those that are tuning in, Chuie and I go way back, all the way back to Fort Worth, Texas, where he was at Bell Helicopter and I was at Bell Helicopter. And I got the privilege to meet this very charming, exceptionally intelligent loads engineer who would come by my desk and talk to this girl beside me named Stephanie, who was also amazing. And I got the privilege of just hanging out with the two of them. Super fun to watch your career go from aerospace engineering, which is not too shabby, all the way up to space.
Yeah, it was a surprising career trajectory for me too, but I think you undersell your contributions. I think in a lot of ways, you were probably one of my first mentors, someone who actually took an interest and provided actionable advice in my career. So I'm excited to be here and kind of bring the full circle moment.
Well, cool, man. No, I tell you, secretly on the inside, every time you and Stephanie would come by my desk, I was like, I hope they still like me. Like, you guys were super sharp and super fun to be with. So, anyway, just a privilege to know you. Well, this is the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. So, I'm going to ask you a leadership question. John Maxwell has 21 laws of leadership. Let's do the law of addition. The law of addition says that leaders add value by serving others. How do you feel about that? Have you seen it in action? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think leaders add value by serving others. I think the simplest definition of leadership is a leader helps take people from where they are to where they need to go. And there's a lot of effort that you have to go put in to figure out where you are and where you need to go. And that's where leaders define vision and all of that. But all that to say is a leader is nothing without a team to lead or people who are going to follow. And so if you're not going to serve those people, then you're really serving yourself and you're not really leading them. You're just taking advantage of them for your own self-interest. So I think leadership and service are pretty much synonymous. And those who claim to be leaders who are not serving their constituents, they may be leading them, but I don't think they are leaders.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the ways that I work that in my head is I think of a gold mine. You are either going into the gold mine and taking gold out, which is what a manipulator does, or you're going into the gold mine and leaving it in, right? But the digging and the work and the dirt and the frustration and the effort, those are all the same. It's
like you're making an investment in the people. And one of the things I like to say is we lift as we rise. So as the leader goes up and blazes a trail, you bring the people along with you on the journey so that you're blazing a trail and creating a path for other people to build on top of the successes that you've had or go further and faster than the leader has. And so one of the times I've been leading a team in my past, my goal was to make myself obsolete, to lead a team that doesn't need me. And that way I'm always growing and they're always growing, and it creates space for them to grow, and it helps me find my next opportunity, hopefully.
I am reminded why I like you so much, sir. That is the way I've said that statement is, and I tell this to almost every leader I meet. I said, listen, if you don't feel worthless twice a day, then you're not leading your team well enough. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, so you and I both used to be engineers, and somewhere in my soul, I still think that being useful is getting on an Excel sheet or drawing something in CAD or doing a calculation somehow. But as a leader, that's not my job anymore. My job is to prep the ground so that the smart guys that I'm leading can do the hard work and get the glory and win the glory that you and I've gotten to win.
Yeah, right. To piggyback on that, I kind of see I think a leader is also a force multiplier, right? So if you're leading a team of 10, with overhead and stuff, that team's maybe like really a team of 8. And so it's the leader's job to get that team back up to at least productivity of 10. And so if there's like minutia or like random things or integration tasks, like clearing a path for your team so that they can continue to be productive and progress on their goals and their vision. I think that's sometimes that's doing like things that the leader that no one wants to do, not even the leader. But I'd rather waste my time doing it because I don't have the skills that you have. I have different skills, and my skills are to keep you productive and to make sure that you're achieving what you want to achieve and making sure that we're making progress towards our shared vision.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so you are now leading a team. Before we talk much more about leadership, I want to flesh out your story. So you were a loads engineer. So for those that are not in the more geeky of the arts, loads engineer means he figures out how much stress is being placed on the aircraft at any given point so that the rest of the engineering functions can try to attempt their jobs. Very cool work. Some of the smartest guys in the team are the loads engineers and the stress engineers. So Christopher was already a genius when I met him. So how do you go from loads engineer with helicopters, which, by the way, in helicopters, we have a saying, which is it's not rocket science, because that's easy, because we kind of poke fun at our rocket engine friends. How do you go from loads at Bell Helicopter to Virgin Galactic?
Yeah, very unexpectedly is the short answer. But I think, both helicopters and rockets are challenging in their own right. But I will say, like, take rocket science and then just like make it all spin. And that's like the number of sines and cosines is just egregious.
Yeah. It's a world full of dots and double dots and triple dots.
Yeah, for sure. But ever since I was a kid, like probably when I was 13, I knew I wanted to be a helicopter engineer. I thought helicopters were the coolest flying machines because, maybe they don't go as high and as fast as, other aircraft or high performance jets or things like that. But they can stop like in midair and go up and down and backwards and sideways. And so like my goal was always to get into the helicopter industry. I thought it was really cool. Obviously, I think airplanes and rockets are cool too, but helicopters were my first passion. I never would have thought I would have ended up in the space sector, to be honest. When I got my undergraduate degree from University of Maryland, your junior year, you have to choose a track. You have to go air track or space track. And I went air track, so like my specialty is in aeronautics, not necessarily in astronautics. Yeah, the opportunity came along to go to Virgin Galactic. In the aerospace industry, there's ebbs and flows, especially as a lot of it's tied to defense spending. So, lots of companies experience layoffs, and one of my mentors at Bell was laid off. He ended up landing a job at Virgin Galactic following his original passion to be in the space sector, not necessarily aeronautics. And then about a year and a half later, I was just like shooting him a message. He's like, you know what, you really should come over here. And I just happened to be on vacation in California. And I was like, I would love to come over and see the spaceship while I'm here. And he's like, we're having a recruiting event this Tuesday. Why don't you come on by? And the rest is kind of history. But I didn't think I was qualified, honestly, to enter the space industry. And it just so happens that I found the one company going to space with airplanes where aeronautics is still heavily relevant. And but it turns out that Newton's laws are still applicable. F equals ma, whether it's a helicopter or a rocket.
Yes.
As long as you're significantly below the speed of light, you don't have to worry about relativity. F equals ma is still a really good mental model to apply to rockets. So that's kind of the short, fun answer of how I ended up going from helicopters to rockets, but it was very unexpected.
No, I love that story for a number of reasons. One, from a young man, from a child, really, you said, this is what I want to do in life. And then you excelled at it. And then you built relationships with mentors, and then they opened doors for you. And really, the next level of the world, I think, post-college, and even really in college, is about relationships. Like they say that your net worth is your network. And it really is true. The people that you've built relationships with, now it can sound cruel when I say it that way. It's not really about nepotism as somebody that has to hire people and recruit people. It's really more about, can I trust you? So it's like this very, very long vetting process of deciding this really cool position that I have. Can I trust the person that I'm going to put there? So I think it's a cool story, man. Okay. So you go out to California, you meet a lovely lady that I've not yet met, but I have seen on Facebook, and you have two kids now, or just one kid?
2 kids now. Yeah.
2 kids now. Welcome, Dad Squared. Good job. Well done. That's fun. What's your biggest parenting surprise?
2 kids is significantly more than twice the work.
Yes, it is. Yes, indeed it is.
And one of my, like, going into parenting, you know, everyone gives you advice like, oh, we're having our first kid. Oh, I've got a piece of advice for you. Here's what someone told me. And I look at the landscape of all the parenting books and advice and websites and all that. And I realized that there's way too much conflicting information out there for all of it to be right. And so
Right.
therefore you question all of it. But I don't have time to question all of it. So I decided we're going to make just-in-time decisions at every moment. There's no plan. We're just going to wing it. And then when a problem arises, we'll do a deep dive to get it smarter. But there's no point in preparing because there's no way you're going to find the right information before you need it. So
I love it. Yeah. My parenting advice is this. It actually comes from a psychological thing called a game. It's called the games we play. And the idea is that kids need to see us seeing them, right? So the reason that I think a lot of parenting strategies work that are different than mine is what really, really matters is, does that kid know that you're watching and know that you care and love them? And it's a fun. I have 4 kids, and we had 3 kids, and I was like, I'm acing this thing. I can do another one. And we got the 4th one, and I was like, whoa, that was too much.
found your limits, huh?
I found my limits. I'm at 3.5 kids. So I'm currently, my safety margin is negative at the moment. So
yeah, as you're speaking, I think probably the biggest thing that informs my parenting philosophy, if you will, is about creating an environment where a child can thrive and where a parent can, like, the environment is like almost like the third parent or the plus one parent. And like, it's easy to try, and there's so many instances where you can just like get into a battle with your child, like, don't touch that, don't break that, don't do that. And I think what's really interesting, I compare it to artificial intelligence, and it's funny because like children learn the same way that artificial intelligence does, but it's right now easier to understand how children learn because AI is so prevalent right now. And it's all about experimentation and failure and creating a huge training data set. And so I think the environment is like that training data set for your kid. It's like when they throw a spoon on the floor, they're not being defiant. They're just trying to figure out if gravity works for a spoon, works for a pen, works for a bottle. You know, it's all experimentation until like their mental model locks in and their neurons solidify. And so, you know, it's all about the environment I see. So I work on the environment where to minimize the net stress on everybody.
no, I love that. And in fact, I think that in leadership, when AI first came out, really came out mainstream, like 2020, no, I guess 2022, I think. I was like stunned because I was like, holy mackerel, this is how I used to work with my teams. Is you're building mental models and you're saying, listen, I need you to think this way about this project, and I need to give you reinforcement until I can trust that you can do it, and then I'll teach you the next module. Yeah, AI has such interesting applications for parenting and mentoring and leadership and all the above. That's why I'm so excited about it, frankly.
Yeah, it's a great mental model. And ironically, I felt like we had to build an artificial brain to better understand how we work. At least for me, I'm sure neuroscientists maybe know, but not me.
No, 100%. Okay, well, I'm going to pull us back into your career here. So you go over to Virgin, and you're now in charge of. You made a comment in the bio, and I don't know because it was a little bit longer. You've had an exhaustive career, even already. I just want to bring this up for the audience. So you touched every part on the spaceship before you flew it. Yeah.
I mean, as a loads engineer, you don't design a single part. You do the analysis for the entire structure of the vehicle and all of its components. So in that way, you know, I helped design the airframe, the substructure, the landing gear, the, you know, pneumatic systems, not some of the control laws. So yeah, it's exhaustive. I wouldn't say I've touched like every single detailed part, but as a result of having working in an analysis discipline that is a systems analysis, essentially, you get a big understanding of the system as a whole, which gives you a really interesting perspective on risk and kind of the conglomerate of risk and how things get added and subtracted in total. So that was a really interesting experience, and using that flying to space later on was a unique I probably had a very unique perspective as one of the few people who've helped design a space vehicle that they've also flown on.
Yeah. So let me pull that thread for a second. Did you know you were flying? When, like, as you're designing it, did you know that you were flying?
There was a period of time, maybe not so much for the spaceship, but the mothership, our carrier airplane is where we were in the one of the developmental cycles as I kind of got the news that I was going to be having the opportunity to fly. But yeah, there were times where I had knowledge that I was going to be flying, but that was a tightly kept secret between me and our executive leadership team, where, I've gotten a reputation for speaking truth to power and kind of standing up for what I believe is right. Integrity is one of my highest values.
Yes.
But like what people didn't know is like when I'm making decisions like, hey, I think this is a safety critical decision and we should go this direction on this particular thing. A lot of people say, would you put your life on the line for this decision? And I can honestly say, yes, I would, but that didn't change my opinion. But I was coming from that perspective, like, if I'm going to ride on this, I think this is the right thing to do. And as a person who has this technical expertise, I take it on myself to speak on behalf of people who don't have this expertise, who are also going to accept these risks in the future.
Yeah, that's okay. So what was the process? Now in my mind, there was a giant arcade full of Galaga machines, and you guys had a contest and a to try to see who, like the last Star Lord or whatever. What was the selection process like? How was the vetting? Was it kind of behind the scenes, or was there an open competition?
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't very Ready Player One. That would have been, although my Galaga skills are not very good. Moonlander or Miss Pac-Man is my jam. But no, it wasn't an open process. Essentially, I was shortlisted and handpicked by our executive leadership team based on a handful of qualifications that aren't necessarily known to a lot of people, and and comes back to what you were saying before about trust, right? And I think I'd proven myself technically in my career. I had been doing a good amount of outreach work and have proven that I've got strong communication skills and I'm able to represent in a lot of ways. So in addition to me flying as a mission specialist, it was a test flight of the vehicle and of our total commercial service operations. It was also a soft launch for the business going into commercial service. And so there was a pretty decent media plan that went along with that. So, me and some of my colleagues, we did interviews with, MSNBC, Associated Press, Times of London, CNN, KTL, like a lot of them. I can't remember them all.
Yeah.
They're on my website if you want to see them. But like,
yeah, I'm gonna interrupt there real quick, and I'm just going to point out, Christopher is exactly who he appears to be on the show here. In fact, he's quite frankly, he's cooler in person. And he is now. I remember when I saw that you were getting on to be the astronaut, and like my heart just like exploded. I was like, this is the perfect guy. This could not happen to a better guy, both technically and personally. I'm super excited for you. But if you're listening to this show, Chuie is now speaking. He's an inspirational speaker. I've not seen him personally yet, but I know what he's like in person, and I've seen him lead teams. If you're looking for a speaker that's going to inspire your team, that's going to talk about integrity, that's going to motivate the team to literally break through the limits and land amongst the stars, Chuie is an amazing asset. So you should reach out. He's going to bring some really cool stories. He can swing heavy technical. Very few folks that I know can swing as technical as he can, and inspirational from a leadership perspective. One more, and then I'll stop talking. But you're actually in charge of the systems engineering department, right?
Yeah, currently at Virgin Galactic, yes.
Yeah, so that systems engineering, for those that don't know, there's like Tinker Toys, that's mechanical engineering. Then there's cooking, which is chemical engineering, and then there's wizardry, which is electrical engineering. And systems engineering sits on top of all of that and makes sure that all of that stuff works. So when you say that Chuie is in charge of the systems engineering department, that's about as technical as you can get. And then he also does the other piece. So if you're looking for an amazing speaker, Chuie's your man. Think about that. Okay. So you get selected. What was space like? Is it were you like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought it would be like? Or was there like a moment when you're like, oh, wow. Tell me about flying to space.
Bottom line up front, it's really, really cool.
All right. All right.
Highly, highly recommend. It's an experience unlike any other. Whatever expectations you have, they will not be met because there's no foundation for what you can even expect. They'll be highly exceeded. I think the experience of being in space, high G's of riding a rocket, the acceleration, the sound, the sights, it all kind of comes together to be a truly unique, and there's no other way to get that experience in total other than just flying to space. The Virgin Galactic spaceflight system is an air-launched rocket. So it's basically an airplane that drops a smaller space plane, and the rocket-powered plane flies to space, then folds in half and goes back down on Earth. That's another topic. Very, very fascinating.
As we rushed over. Yeah.
But the experience of being in space is pretty surreal. I remember once you get to the end of the rocket motor burn profile, you hear the pilots say, shutdown complete, welcome to weightlessness, you're clear to unstrap. And in that moment, you unbuckle your harness. And the experience of weightlessness is very natural, and it's a little bit difficult to explain because it's the absence of sensation. And I feel like most things that we experience is an addition of sensation, whether you taste or touch or feel or hear or see something or smell something. But weightlessness is just like your body just gets out of the way, and you're literally not weighed down. And I think it's as close as maybe humanity can come for now to just being thought. If you've ever put on a VR headset, this is probably a more literal analogy, but you put on a VR headset and you're basically just hands, and you're just these controller hands that can just push around on stuff. You only need a couple of fingers to push around, to navigate around the cabin and to move around in microgravity. So it's very you truly are weightless. But I think that's as close as you come to just being thought. And so whatever you perceive through your other senses is really all that you are in that moment. And I'm sure that doesn't make any sense to a lot of people, but it's one of the best ways I can explain the experience of weightlessness. And then couple that with the sights of the Earth. Our planet is the most beautiful, wondrous thing I've ever seen. And I remember when I first laid eyes on it, my jaw just dropped. And the way I like to explain that is just pure and childlike joy. When kids just experience joy and there's nothing bringing them down, they're completely oblivious to the world because it's way beyond their comprehension. You get that focus, and you can only focus on the present moment because your mind is your neural pathways are literally being reconfigured because you've seen something that you just had no context for, because you can actually see the Earth in context of space. It's trippy, man. But it's an amazing, visceral, reverent experience overall.
That's cool, man. I've heard that, not in that detail, but I've heard that from other astronauts that have commented that Earth gazing is one of the most popular things to do on the space station. That's cool to hear it. So you have a plane essentially that's strapped to a rocket that flies. So a portion of it, you're getting lift from the atmosphere, and then you're up in space, and then you're a rocket, or how high do you get? What's the mechanics of getting up there?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the details of my flight. I think my flight got to 290,000 feet. It's just about 53, 54-ish miles, I think. Okay. And so it's kind of two airplanes, and the mothership, we call it the carrier airplane. It's very similar to back in the 1950s and 60s with the Bell X-1 and the X-15, that air-launched rockets. It's actually where we took a lot of the inspiration for the design. But the spaceship drops from the mothership, and then it's horizontal flight. So the spaceship takes about 5 seconds from release of the spaceship to get supersonic. And then once you're supersonic, for the aerospace enthusiasts out there, you basically don't touch the controls when you're transonic, because transonic is wildly unstable. Not wildly unstable, but it's just not a place where you do anything, because transonic is not a place where you linger. So once you break through the sound barrier, they trim the H-stabs, horizontal stabilizers, to pitch the nose up, and then it's lift-borne flight until you get out of the atmosphere. It's very similar to a dolphin jumping out of the water. A dolphin can very well underwater, and then once it's in space, it's kind of on a ballistic trajectory. And so once we're out of the atmosphere, the air is appreciably thin, where the aerodynamic control surfaces are not functional. Then we have another control system called the reaction control system. We shoot jets of compressed air through various vectors of the spaceship to orient it. But for the most part, you're just kind of like jumping out of the atmosphere like a dolphin jumping out of the water. And that's the moment where we're like in space in microgravity until we kind of splash back into the atmosphere.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw a picture up here. This is, what are the two vehicles called again?
The mothership, the big white airplane, has the two fuselages on the left and right. That's called VMS Eve, Virgin Mothership Eve, named after Richard Branson's mother. And then the ship in the middle is Spaceship. That one is called VSS Unity, Virgin Spaceship Unity.
And then this is what it looks like: is they detach, and then you engage your thrusters and porpoise out of the atmosphere. Yeah,
yeah, porpoise. Good one.
That's the highly technical term. That's cool, man. All right, so you were up there. You had the experience. You came back down after kind of the photographers and everybody left. What is your takeaway from having been to space? Is it like parachuting? You can't wait to do it again? Was it surreal? What are you experiencing now that you're back on Earth?
I would definitely do it again, given the opportunity. I was in a very unique and special place, and I'm very grateful for that, to like be a mission specialist on behalf of the company. So, most people will pay for this experience. I got paid for this experience. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that. I'd be very grateful if the opportunity came around again. I cannot personally afford a ticket to go to space at this point in time, but I'm working on increasing my wealth, and we're working on bringing down the cost of the company. So maybe one day we'll intersect and we'll go again. But from takeaway wise, there's this thing called the overview effect. It's a common thing that astronauts experience, and it's this kind of what I described previously. It's this new perspective of the Earth that gives you this overwhelming feeling of connectedness to the planet and the people on it, and then this strong desire to just like take care of our planet because it's special and fragile. You get to see how thin our atmosphere is. Mm-hmm. Before anyone knew I was going to space, but I had to like block out the time on my calendar. I would just tell people I was going on a business trip, and they're like, "Oh, where you going?" I was like, "Oh, not far, just 50 miles." But
50 miles.
But space isn't that far, and I think it seems far away because it's almost like that Truman Show effect, where you can't actually see outside of the bubble, but you really are in a bubble. Once you're outside of the bubble, you realize how small and contained the space you've been living in is, and I think that just gives you the experience of like wanting to be a better steward of the planet. And for me, I think it encouraged me to have more audacious goals. Like if I made it to space, and I don't want to think that I peaked in my 30s. So I still have audacious goals of things I want to achieve in the future. But this is just kind of like, the motivational piece. Like if I could do this, what else am I capable of? And seeing the world as a whole, as a unit, seeing humanity as one species on this very diverse bubble of life in the middle of no other known life in the entire universe that we know yet. It just makes you feel small and grateful and appreciative, and maybe it's a little more motivation to try and solve our challenges here on Earth. And I'm a big Star Trek fan, so my future, the future that I see is very utopian. And so it's like, what can we do in the present to bring the world together so that we can go out into the stars and explore together, not in spite of each other.
Yeah, no, I was watching a Facebook reel or something. I'm a boomer. I watch Facebook reels. I was watching a Facebook reel, and somebody commented on that Star Trek is really the only one of the sci-fis that believes in a hope in the future, right? We solved our differences, and we travel the stars together. I do love that. All right, I'm going to switch the show up here a little bit. You're a mentor to folks that serve underneath you, right? So you said this to me: success is where preparedness meets opportunity. Why do you like that phrase so much?
I like it because it neatly buckets. It's almost like roles and responsibilities for the goals that you want to achieve. And so if you break that down, like if you can imagine almost like doing a sentence diagramming from like your 6th grade language arts class, success, first word is success. What does success mean to you? You need to go figure that out. That takes deep introspection. That's an own masterclass right there, trying to figure out what success means to you.
Right.
Preparedness that's something that you can control. You can choose to prepare for your future and that success that you desire by what you read, what you learn, the people you surround yourself with, how you study, understanding how you learn. You can prepare, if you're going, hiking, you can prepare all of the gear and stuff you need. It's just like, what are the tools and skills and knowledge you need to achieve your goal? And then opportunity is, that one's kind of 50-50. You don't have control over all of the opportunities that come your way. But if you're not prepared, you may not be able to recognize things that come your way as opportunities. And so in that way, by being prepared, you can recognize relevant and beneficial opportunities. But you also have the ability, hopefully, it's not always the case, but to control your environment. And this goes back to like my mental or my parenting philosophy by controlling environments, right? If you're in an environment where no one is going to recognize your success or your talent or your preparedness, then that is a place where you are less likely to be successful, because that is the piece of the puzzle that's outside your control. And if you don't have confidence that anyone's looking back after you to recognize and give you an opportunity, then you're not going to make a whole lot of progress towards your goal, because we can't really do much alone. You generally need other people to help you succeed. So that's why I like that phrase. Like, if you really dive into what each word means and what those words all mean together, you both need the preparedness and the opportunity to intersect and create that success that you're looking for.
I absolutely love that. And I'll actually add to that, and this is an aspect a lot of folks don't realize. We as managers, as bosses, as leaders, as executives, we are always looking. We are always watching the folks that are in our teams, and we are waiting to give them opportunities, right? Because we have these opportunities where I need somebody I can trust to go to space. And I'm watching folks that are preparing themselves, because a lot of people will be like, well, when you pay me enough, then I will prepare. And the answer is, first of all, if you did, there would be a lag of time, and I'm not willing to wait for the lag time. And the second of all is, if you're only preparing because you have an opportunity, then you're probably not thoroughly prepared, because it's kind of a mercenary behavior. I'm looking for folks that are preparing in advance so that they're ready for the moment. And then I'm like, this moment is Chris's. This is Chuie's moment. And then it's a delight to give those opportunities to those who have prepared. So if you are not yet in those executive decision rungs, or maybe if you are in the executive decision rungs, understand that opportunities do come to the prepared, because we're trying to find people that are worthy of the opportunity. Frankly, it's actually kind of difficult.
Yeah, like, the leaders are looking to hand out those opportunities when they become available. And I think you can sometimes get frustrated when you are subordinate to a leader that's not giving opportunities, because you don't have the same knowledge that they do, and you're not always going to be able to provide the opportunities when someone wants them. And so there's that trust, and there's that environment that you kind of need to tie those two things together. I recently made a post on my Instagram that said, I've prepared for thousands of futures that never came, but as a result of doing that, I prepared for the one that did. And that's what led to some of the successes that I've had. Is you kind of have to be okay with failure and kind of shouting into the wind, knowing that a lot of what you do might not be useful, but some of what you do will be incredibly useful. That's almost analogous to investing in the stock market. The best thing you can do is just invest constantly. Don't wait for like the one event. I think there's studies out there that show, if you missed the 5 or 10 most important days in the stock market over like a 20-30 year period, you had a massive 100-300% change in return just by missing those handful of days. And that just means you just got to keep doing things and knowing that you're going to fail a lot of the time, and trust the process.
Yeah, it really is quantity and quality, right? One of the things that I've been wrestling with in my soul, and this expresses itself differently for different religious practices, but for me, the act of faith is getting out there and doing it without knowing the result, right? And I think that a lot of times we're like, well, if I know that this will work, then I will go do it. And that's not faith that can be rewarded, right? That's just, at best, it's mercenary, right? At worst, it's compulsory. But to really get out there and connect with the possibilities, you got to fail a lot, and that's okay, because you grow in the process. 100%. I think it's cool.
I think it's cliche to think sometimes, but the cliches tend to be true. But I think you have to love the process and not necessarily go on a hard journey only to get to the end goal. One of my best friends in college, he's like pursuing the traditional NASA astronaut path. He's actually pretty far down the path. BS, MS, PhD in aerospace engineering, Air Force, Space Force, test pilot school, speaks Russian.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that he will never make it to space just because of how competitive it is. But he loves doing the things he does at each step of the way. And so even though like he runs like ultra marathons and he's like, hey, let's go hike a 14er this weekend. And I'm like, absolutely not.
I've done a 14er and absolutely not. Yes.
I think he's like my boilerplate example for, love the process. It's good to have faith in that you will achieve with your efforts, but you also have to just like love having faith.
Yeah. I love it, man. All right. Well, we are kind of running down on time in the show here, and I want to give you a chance. So last question, and then I'm going to give you kind of a time just to say whatever you want to say. What's in the ahead in 2025 and 2026 for Chuie?
Well, I like to publish my goals every year, but this year I want to focus on creating more long form content. Last year I had a goal of doing a lot of Instagram reels and creating short form content and just figuring out social media. But this year it's a bit more introspective and doing long form content, and that involves writing. And so I have way more ideas than I have time to actually like suss them all out. And so this is the hard part. I'm trying to like distill down all the thoughts I have into hopefully a book. And so I'm trying to bring some thoughts together on writing a book about mentorship. For the longest time in my career, I didn't have any mentors, and then I did, and then things really started happening for me. And now I mentor people, and so I've kind of learned that mentorship is my passion, and I want to share all that I've learned for those that are seeking their own path.
You would be amazing as an author. I would love it. So when your book comes out, come back on the show and we'll do a launch. I think you should definitely write a book. I think you'd be amazing at it.
Thank you. I will be happy to come back. Step one, write book. So we're still at step one.
Well, I'm happy to provide the easy step two. Come on, Drew's show. No, that's cool, man. I'm actually, a book is probably in my future as well. I've been, I think when you met me, I was giving these talks. Do you remember my Into the Sidewalk talks that I used to give?
Not by that name.
Anyway, there were 12 talks, and I would take folks out and I would just work them through them. And something in my soul said, yes, those are good, but they're not. There was something in me that wasn't worked out yet before I could write the book. And I feel like about a year ago, I got the go ahead that yes, your soul is now in a good spot to write that book. And I was like, cool. So I've been noodling on it, and definitely 2025 is a year I'm going to take a stab at it myself. Maybe we'll swap notes.
Yeah. Let's go on the journey together, because it's hard to go on the journey alone.
It is. Okay. So last 30 seconds, a minute for you. What do you want to leave the audience with?
I think I want to leave the audience with your mindset is everything. What you think you can do is what you can do. A lot of the people I mentor and even lead tend to have self-limiting beliefs sometimes. And one of the things I never tolerate is people talking poorly about themselves. If you talk poorly about yourself or impose limits, then why would anybody else do anything differently? And already with how you think about yourself, you're limiting your potential and the opportunities that will come to you. So, do the self-work, understand what you want, figure out what your core values are, peel it back like an onion, and establish a bigger goal than you think you can achieve. I think a lot of people probably don't set big enough goals, because you need a really, really big, audacious goal to force you out of your bad habits and shake up your mindset, to force you out of discomfort. And growth is where you're uncomfortable. Like you literally have to tear your muscles in order to grow them. And so your life and your mindset is no different.
Do we have a guest star here?
We do.
I actually had my guest star come in like 5 minutes into this. I just started with you, and she came in, so we missed both there. Well, okay, listen, if you're watching the show here and you're like, man, that's an interesting story, bring Chuie into your office. Bring him to your event. He's an amazing speaker. You're going to talk to one of the very few folks that have been to space. and he did it before he was 40. So he's got an amazing story, a deep technical background, and those softer skill chops. So if you're looking for somebody to help your team get inspired and you want to kind of mentor your team, especially if you have a heavy technical team, Lockheed Bell Helicopter, reach out to Chuie, get him on your stage, do a lunch and learn, have him to your event. And when you call him, tell him you saw him on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. So with that, we are out.